It's your weekly breakaway for fun conversations on pro cycling. Come and join us for another ride in the team bus. I'm Matt Harper, and together with my brother Justin, we'll do deep-ish dives on professional bike races, teams, riders, and all sorts of cycling-related stories. And we might just sprinkle in some other shiny pop cultural objects along the way. So jump in the saddle and tighten up those shoes. The road awaits. Allez!
Hello and welcome to the Team Bus. I'm Justin and this is my brother Matt, and today on the bus it's our 3v1 show. The 2025 season gave us one of our absolute favorite days of racing basically ever at Dwars, Vlaanderen. When the very rare occurrence of a four-man breakaway with three riders from one team transpired, and it put us in a bit of a quandary. Because the three riders were three of our favorites: superstar Wout van Aert, American on the come-up and defending race champion Matteo Jorgensen, and the legendary hard man of the classics, Tiesj Benoot, all riding for my favorite team, Visma Lease Bike. But taking them on all by himself was none other than your best friend, American Nielsen Palace, from the American squad of EF Education Easy Post. So who to root for? In a way, we were going to be pleased with the outcome no matter what, but we never could have predicted what happened at the finish line. And that result put us in mind of another classic 3-on-1 race from the past, the 2015 Omloop Het Nieuwsblad, the great early season cobbled classic. That race saw the Edix Quickstep team, at the time an absolute juggernaut of the classics racing, led by superstar former world champion Tom Boonen, in the driver's seat with three riders. But riding with them was the wily defending champion from Team Sky, Ian Stannard, and fireworks ensued. We'll get into analysis of both races today, comparing and contrasting and offering our takeaways. And as always, we'll finish out with another bumpy cobbled ride in the Broom Wagon. Allez! Welcome to the show, everyone. It is our 3v1 show where we are going to compare and contrast two of the best races of the last decade. Omloop Het Nieuwsblad in 2015 and Dwars Vlaanderen from this past year. Matt, where would you like to start?
I think we start with Omloop.
I think we should too as well. Why don't you set up kind of how you were aware of this? Obviously, I wasn't aware of this until you made me aware of it. So where did you first become aware of this race? Did you actually see it, or is it just something that was kind of, spoiled for you that you went back and watched later on? Or
number two for sure. I was not this deep into watching bike racing at this time, like when this race happened in 2015. I think I was sort of back on the Tour de France and the stuff I could see on NBC, but that was about it. By the way, I should just apologize for the quality of my voice. I think I got something coming on right now, but you'll have to bear with me. I also did a swim meet announcing gig over the weekend, so really been putting the old vocal cords to the sword, but I'm gonna hang in there. Wasn't watching a lot back then, and I certainly didn't watch this race live or anything like that. I heard about it probably in some other commentator mentioning it at some point. It's probably Geraint Thomas said something. Oh, really? Ian Stannard? So I went back and watched it on Tiz or something like that, and really enjoyed it. And instantly when Dwars concluded this year, I immediately thought of this now, because it's sort of in my head as the only happenstance of this particular situation. And the Dwars this year, which is like such a great.
The parallels are uncanny.
It's awesome. I mean, it's sort of, and you would think there would the nature of the situation would, uh, yield some similarities, but we'll get into it. So, 2020, this is 2015. Some of the heavy hitters who are in the race, um, some names that will be very familiar to many listeners. Tom Bonin, the former world champion from Belgium, absolute beast in top form, basically. His countryman, Nicky Terpstra, who had, I know he won some big races. Edvald Bosenhagen, Tour de France, multiple Tour de France stage winner. Philippe Gilbert, man
Mhm.
who won 4 out of the 5 monument races.
We were talking about him
Greg
last
Van
week.
Greg Van Avermaet, absolute, just like long-term champion, Olympic gold medal winner in 2016. Zdeněk Stybar, the Czech national champion at the time, and another big heavy hitter. And then one Sir Bradley Wiggins, also in the race for Team Sky. The country is cycling mad, huge crowds out on the course, even though it's like super cold. They've got carnival rides out there and attractions insane. This is a spring classic, cobbled climbs. You got the Muir, the Valkenberg, the Kreuzberg, the Tyenberg, the Layberg, and the Molenberg, among other climbs out there on there. 2015. So you got the great old kit, as we were discussing in a recent episode, where we were rewatching something, and I was just loving, I love seeing like the evolution of Team Kit. And it's so nice to sort of step back in time and kind of get yourself back in that aesthetic space. Um, we had Rob Hatch on the call, and I think he was all by himself,
He
wasn't he?
was all
Wasn't
by
he with
himself.
the solo gigs? Yeah, and of all the folks to handle the solo gig, that man will knock it out of the park. He's just an absolute, on the Mount Rushmore. Um, Speaking of the old kit, he called out the brown AG2R kit, the brown shorts with the white top, blue and brown
Yes,
with
with the
diamonds. He
diamonds.
was like he called it a quote, somewhat questionable fashion choice. The MTM Quebeca kit, they're out there looking like soccer referees. It was it was something else. So there's your setup.
So I loved the fact that Luke Rowe was getting so much run in this race, like because he
Yeah.
was he was helping to control the front, and he was. I mean, like I was like, holy moly, Luke Rowe is all over this race. Like that was the first thing that kind of like you know took me by surprise. I was not expecting to hear Luke Rowe's name mentioned this many
Have you
times.
have you looked at my broom wagon?
I I saw it, but I did not do. I didn't actually like dig into it. I just saw it as I was scrolling past.
Let me just say how happy I am to have you lead off with the Luke Rowe conversation. That's all I'll say.
um, the it was interesting. So it's interesting to me anytime I go back and watch one of these old races because this is prior. This is 5 years prior to me watching cycling. I'm absolutely shocked at the what 10 years has done to the quality of the broadcast. Like obviously now we watch everything in crystal clear high definition. Like even in 2015 this race was not in high def. It was like
Yeah,
it was
for sure.
it's hard to even like you take for granted seeing the numbers on the backs of guys jerseys from the aerial shot like you can now where you can be like, oh, that's this guy or that's this guy.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
noticed myself being like, man, I could barely tell who that is. And you can tell that they also have a bit of the same issue. the
Yeah, yeah,
the
you're
broadcasters.
also seeing in this replay what Flanders Classics package looked like 10 years ago.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Which is already sort of not on the same level as like some of the other like larger Grand Tour offerers, the Euro sports of the world. Um, and so your uh, screen graphics are, I wouldn't say they're lacking. I mean, I feel like as far as time splits and stuff like that, it kept up quite
Hmm.
well. But it's just kind of uninspired. The look of the graphics package or whatever. It it gets the job done in a very like
Yes, it's
workaday
very
sense.
practical. It's not very, you know.
But you're certainly right about the lack of like focus or whatever. Hard focus, high def detail. But I kind of lean into it. It's like it's nostalgia already. You know what I mean? It's only 10 years removed, but it's just like, it's just like I really like the look of like 90s stuff. Like I there's nothing better than seeing like camcorder footage that you can tell is clearly like came off of somebody's Sony Handycam. Like, oh, I love that. You know what I mean? That is so vintage, and like it puts me in it like instant like uh nostalgia mode
Yeah,
because
I
I'm
mean,
so old and I lived
it's
through it.
wild, man. There's been like two things this in the last like week where I like looked something up somewhere, and then I looked at a date and I was like, oh my god, this movie's 20 years old. This movie's 21 years old. What is this? Like, how
It's
is that
crazy.
possible?
Time is just speeding up.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, so let's break down the race. So where do you want to pick it up at?
Well, when the coverage started, Team Sky was bossing the front. That we're talking with 60K to go or something like that. Um, Ian Stannard is on the team, and let's not forget, he is the defending champion of
Hmm.
this race.
Correct. But
He knows how to win this race. You got Bradley Wiggins and Bernard Eisel on the team with these enormous beards, I mean, I'm used to seeing Brad Wiggins in a beard, but on the bike with the beard, it was kind of funny. And 59 Ks to go. Tom Bonen attacks on the Tyenberg, and who covers him? Luke Rowe. Um, But by 43 kilometers to go, it's whittled down to this group of eight, three riders from edX Quick Step, which is what the Quick Step team was called back
mhm.
then. Bonin, Sepp Van Mark, or excuse me, three riders from edX Quick Step. I'm not sure who at this point, but also Sepp Van Mark for Lotto Jumbo, which is now Visma Lease Bike,
Right.
and Ian Stannard is in there for Sky. Um, Trying to figure out when it got down to, I guess it was around 37 to go. Layberg is the climb. Quick Step puts on, steps on the gas, and then they establish the lead of four. So you got Tom Bonin, former world champion, absolute monster of the classics, Nicky Terpstra, big winner, and then a super solid, like hard man, Vandenberg, and then Ian Stannard for Team Sky. And they quickly get like 30 seconds on the bunch, like within a kilometer or two. So by like 35 kilometers out, the three of them are ahead and almost clearly ahead for good.
The so the thing, the thing that kind of stuck out to me was it surprised me that Standard was the one that ends up in the break with those guys, considering that it was clear that they were riding for Bradley Wiggins early on. You
I
know,
don't think so. I disagree.
I see. I feel like they were doing the work for Wiggins early on. I really do.
I mean, Stannard is the defending champion. I think Wiggins was
I
100%
mean,
there.
if you want to draw another parallel,
All
Mateo
right, well,
Jorgensen was the defending champion at Dwarsdorf Vandalen.
I'm gonna put it. Yeah, that's true. I'm gonna put it on my list as something to go back and reconsider.
Okay,
I'd like to watch the beginning of that race, but
so
um,
all right, and after that, once you get down to this four-man group, in your head, you're saying like, oh, dude, Tom Bonen's gonna is this is his race to
no,
lose at that point,
no brainer,
right?
absolute no brainer. You know, Terpstra and Vandenberg are not on a level of Tom Bonen. He's the guy for sure.
Well,
Um,
and I feel like if you're thinking about it, do if you put Standard and Bonin head to head, I feel like you have to be thinking that Tom Bonen's going to come out ahead of
I
that
would
pair
think
as
at that
well.
point in time, but you just have to. It's like we as viewers, we as viewers should have been wary as Quick Step as a team should have been wary. It's the defending champion, the man. And last year when the race went on, it was nasty and cold and brutal, and he did it. So this year he's got really nice weather, everything's fine, and he's hanging in now. earlier in the final breakaway, um, Quick Step put in a couple of digs on him, excuse me, that he had to cover, and they seem to be playing it perfectly. Um, all right, so at 14.7 kilometers ago, the YouTube video, the English version with Rob Hatch, suddenly jumps to 5.1K to go. Did you notice that?
Nah, I did notice.
So I went back to the Belgian version because I wanted to see what happened during that section, if anything interesting happened. So for one thing, Standard was like getting tons of support from the team car in terms of like strategizing. Like the car would come up and they were just like talking for like long periods of time, and then like he'd go back and then the car comes back up and he's talking to him again. And it's like, wow, like they're really trying to put this puzzle together, figure this thing out or whatever, I guess. Um, and Quick Step was
Well,
kind of having some
there's no
conversations
race
with their cars
radios,
as well.
so
Oh, they didn't have race radios in 2015? No, yeah, they did.
no. It was because of the level of the race. I swear to God, I heard them say something about this during the broadcast, that because of because it was like not a, like it's a pro level race or not a world tour race, that there was no race radios.
Okay. Well,
I
nonetheless,
swear I heard that during the broadcast.
I'll take your word for it. Um, 10 kilometers ago, they still had 20 seconds on the chase. Chasing group was Van Avermaet, Stibar, and Sepp Van Mark. But during that entire section, when they would jump from 14 to 5 kilometers on the English broadcast, Quick Step, and this is a big parallel to the Dwars Tour that we're going to be discussing from 2025. They basically did not put in any attacks during that period of time. They just rode really hard on the front. And I guess, see, I think when you are employing that kind of a strategy, you're betting on your opponent not having the legs, or just being less, having a lower threshold than you. You're just going to make it so hard that, and hope that, he's the one that falls off. So, um,
I don't want to bury the lead about what I want to say. So I'm definitely gonna come back and draw the parallel. I'm gonna draw the parallels once we get into the other race that I want to draw anyway. Because there's a couple of things that I think specifically on that note where in both cases I think both of these teams got a very similar thing wrong.
yes, and let's just say if you wanted to sum up why the video skipped from 14.7 to 5.1, it's because nothing was happening. And therein lies the problem, that between 14 kilometers and 5 kilometers, nothing was happening in terms of the team that had three riders who was controlling things. So, um,
So that takes us.
and
So
and what's happening during that time is that Ian Stannard is sitting on the back of the three, just getting an armchair ride whole time.
so at 4.8, all right, Noonan Bonin takes an attack off the front. All right,
Well,
and
let me take you down to four. Is that where you want to pick up?
yeah, I
'Cause
mean
I got some
4.8
other
is
stuff.
really where it is to me. That's your next
Okay,
spot.
hang on. 8 kilometers to go. Bonin drops back behind Stannard, who was just like riding in the back the entire time, takes on some nutrition. So now you're like, oh, here it comes. And he stays right behind Stannard for like 2 kilometers, just like seems to be waiting for just like the right moment to put in an attack. And now I know why they chose 4 point whatever to
Yeah,
go.
4.8.
4.8, because Quick Step is ramping up the pressure. They force Stannard to the front. And
Then Bonin attacks, and they leave Standard is left to close the gap. So they kind of leave Standard back and make the move. Now, this is my point. This is one of the points I want to make. I feel like this attack came, in my opinion, way too late. They should have done this 10 kilometers before that and put the screws to him earlier. And I'm going to say the same thing about Visma when we get to the other race. Both of these teams played their 3-on-1 completely wrong, in my opinion.
All right, we'll leave it right there for a second. All right, because you're.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting ahead of myself.
And you're getting into what I think is going to be the big takeaway from our entire comparison and contrast. So Bonin gets like a 4-second gap, but never more than that. And at first, Stannard, like he doesn't even look like he's reacting at all. And I'm thinking, it's over. It's absolutely over. He's kind of off to the left. He gives a little look to the other guys, and he's riding hard. But like Bonin's up there, and he's staying ahead, right? Somehow, though, slowly but surely, they just kind of close that gap. You know what I mean? He just gets right back on, and then Bonin immediately drops back, and you realize, like, Bonin doesn't have it this day. You know what I mean? He sort of becomes like not a factor.
He becomes the guy that's trailing off the back. It literally flips where Standard was dragging off the back, and then in a kilometer or two, it flips, and now Bonin is struggling to keep up with Terpstra and Standard.
Right. Well, and what happens too is as soon as Bonin is reeled back in, Terpstra immediately attacks, but this time Standard is right on his wheel. Both him and Vandenberg attack, and Standard's right on his wheel, cool as a cucumber. And right then he looks back at Tom Bonin, and I think at that moment he realized, he knows in his head, he gives him a look, and he's like, that guy doesn't have it. I know from experience. I know what that look on a guy's face is. He doesn't have it today. I'm not worried about him anymore.
Well, at one and a half,
keeps up with Terpstra, and I think suddenly, and then he attacks. That's right, 2.8. He attacks and gets a gap, and Rob Hatch says, "Surely Eddick's quick step can't mess this one up."
So
Vandenberg blows up, and now it's down to the 2-on-1.
Right now, when you get to 1.5, all right. Those two guys have at least 3 seconds on Tom Bonin, right? Like, at least I would say it's 3 to 4 seconds. I mean, it's a big gap. And
right. Vandenberg is gone, and
yes.
Bonin is still hanging on. But this time,
but again, he's like
3 seconds ahead. He's 3 seconds behind, and just like seems like he cannot close that gap.
So he ends up, giving up. And this is where I will say these two situations, while they are very, very similar, the key difference was I felt, that Standard had, like, to me, especially rewatching it this morning before we started, I feel like Standard within the last K was clearly going to win. Like, I felt like you could just tell watching it. Now that I was watching, I'm like, I watched one and then the other, then I watched one and then the other. And it was very clear that Standard had it going into that final K. Like, it was his race to lose at that point, which was crazy considering that, 5 minutes before this, there was there's 3 riders putting this, that should have been putting the screws to this guy, and somehow they have managed to not only just let him hang in there, but now he's dominating them in the key moment of the race.
Absolutely. He just managed to put in an attack at 2.8K to go at the exact right time, and drop Vandenberg. He already knew in his head that Tom Bonin was cooked, and that Bonin wasn't going to be the one to win that day. And so then at that moment, all he has to do is stay with Nicky Terpstra. You know what I mean? That's all he had to do. Stay with Terpstra. And
I think that he
stayed
knew,
with
I think
Terpstra.
he knew that
he came around with like inside of 50 meters to go, perfectly times the sprint. Like just has to put out 5 seconds worth of energy.
Yeah, and smokes
to win that race. Craziness. just absolute perfect.
So obviously Ian Stannard wins. He gives a great interview, by the way. I thought his interview was really, really good. I do find it very interesting when you see him, like, he looks so old compared to like riders.
He's kind of balding.
Yes, he's definitely like losing his hair, and I just remember noting in my brain like, oh wow, like I feel like everybody seems so young these days. It's winning, and this guy does not seem.
Not him, yeah, no. I enjoyed the interview. He said that he was like really worried when like it played out and he realized it was a 3-on-1. You know, you're in the middle of the race, you're not necessarily thinking about that, and you could find yourself in a situation suddenly and be like, oh wait a second, oh shit, it's just me and three of them. And then he was like, but he said he was surprised because they gave him a free ride.
And it's quick step in a classic.
Mm-hmm.
Like if there's one team at this point in time that you don't want to be going up against by yourself, it's quick step in a classic.
Nope. But once again, we're talking about the defending champion.
I know.
He's a hard man. You know, it was great too, watching the Belgian commentary. You could tell that they were annoyed. I watched the whole thing. Like I just like let it play and just was like listening and trying to see what I could make out. You could tell they're kind of annoyed, but I could also hear them saying, "Respect the standard." Like you got to hand it to him. I mean, you do,
because he beat him.
Yeah,
he beat them, and now we'll go ahead and jump into Dwars Door of Vlaanderen. They shouldn't, it should have never happened. They should have been able to control it well enough that he never actually gets there, and at least they could have put him out of the chance. So, let's set up.
He was as fresh as any of the four of them at the finish of that race.
Yes,
and that was a huge mistake
and
for him.
He shouldn't have been, because that's the point. That's the point right there. They were controlling that race well enough that why they didn't put a tax in and try to, they had three guys. They should have been turning the screw on him as hard as they possibly could.
But not in the way that they thought they were doing. I mean, what they did, the way they tried to turn the screw on him was just by keeping the speed really, really, really high, by the three of them working really well together as a team to keep the speed super high. And just to give you an indication of just how fast they were going, the chase group was at 123 when they came through. 123. I mean, the chase group for most of that race was like 20 seconds behind. And they finished at 123. They were going super fast in front, and maybe a little bit of that is a function of the chase group goofing around before the finish, but super, super fast. They thought that they made a gamble that he did not have the power that one of their three guys had, that one of their three guys would have more power than him. And in the end, their best bet turned out to be Nicky Terpstra, but Nicky Terpstra did not have the legs that Ian Stannard had that day.
And it's literally the same mistake that Visma makes in the second race. They just assumed that they had the strongest rider out of these three guys. You know what I mean? And that's why I say the parallels of it are really unbelievable, considering that it was a 3-on-1. Now, obviously, with the Omloop race, the 3-on-1 goes to a 2-on-1, or a 2-on-1 for the last couple of bits, and that's not what happened in Dwars Door of Vlaanderen.
For sure. Well, let's save it and take a break first, and then start fresh on the second race.
Okay. All right. On that note, we'll be right back.
Don't miss Beyond the Slipstream, our weekly companion podcast to the Team Bus, our domestique, if you will, dropping every Saturday in your usual podcast feed.
All right, we're back. We're talking about our 3v1 races from 2015 and 2025. And not that 10 years makes a big difference, because these races were so darn similar. But we are talking about now Dwars Door Vlaanderen from 2025. Some of the big names at the start of this race, obviously you had Matteo Jorgensen, Wout van Aert, Benny M. Girmay, Mads Pedersen, Jonathan Milan, Jasper Stuyven, Tim Merlier, Paul Monnier, Tim Wellen, Stefan Kung, Jasper Philipsen, Alexander Kristoff, and Nielsen Palace. So there was a lot of big name racers in this race.
Before we even got to the race, did you see the shot at the cycling museum in the beginning of the race?
What I don't what shot?
There was another drone shot like we saw at the end of the season, where it was like outside of the building and then it flew in through the front door. And one of the moves this thing pulled, like it went through this tiny little thing like hanging from the ceiling. It was like a metal, like a artistic looking thing, this like piece of metal that went like this, and there were like some bikes hung up on it or something, and it like went right through there. It was real quick in the beginning. It was maybe only like a 5 to 10 second long shot, but I will absolutely visit that museum one day. That museum looked super cool. It was built inside of like a 120-year-old fire station. Anyways, the race, you had Matteo Jorgensen. He's the defending champion from Visma Lease Bike, and certainly one of the protagonists of this race. 11 cobbled sectors, 10 climbs, 4 of which were like cobbles climbs. And start of the coverage, there was like a breakaway group of 8, the likes of Vanderhorn, Louis Askey, Mikkel Bjerg, and Fabio Christian, just over 100 kilometers to go.
Yeah, you had Rasmus Pedersen was also in there, Peter Kellerman, Josh Giddings. One other thing to note going into this, because it does play into the narrative, is that the year before in this race, Wout van Aert had a pretty bad accident that sidelined him for a little portion of 2024. Mm-hmm. So this was a redemptive kind of race, and Matteo obviously ends up winning because he crashed out of the race, and they put all their they shipped all those chips from Wout over to Matteo. Matteo ends up winning.
Right. Closes the deal.
Yes.
A parallel to something I'll be talking about a little later. And 2 years ago at this race, Nielsen Palace was 3rd place. So this is certainly a race that he is focused on and knows he is capable of achieving in.
So you had a couple of notable also to get kind of out of the beginning. Alberto Bettiol and Danny Van Poppel both exit the race pretty early, and at 1:04, Kristoff starts to try to bridge the gap to the front group. Pretty much the entire time, all day long, Visma is driving the front of this race. All right,
absolutely.
They, I don't think they didn't have anybody in that initial breakaway, but they were pressing the advantage of this powerhouse team all day long on the front of the peloton.
Well, I think their lack of presence in the breakaway
is what
dictated that they needed to stay on the front. But I don't know if you noticed, but in almost every shot where Visma Lease Bike was bossing it on the front, EF Education was there or thereabouts. Constantly. You just constantly saw yellow and pink at the front of this race. At 93 kilometers to go, the gap is down to 42 seconds. Visma smashing it. And at 92 Ks to go, did you see the shot of the roadside flag that I put in my notes?
Yes. It was like Iron Maiden, right?
Yes, this guy had this flag. It was like the big yellow Lion of Flanders. That's like every other flag out there on the race. And then right below that, Iron Maiden's The Trooper. I was like, hell to the yeah. I love that. So cool. What I find crazy about these Belgian classics is just how devastating the punchy climbs can be. because the pace is so high in these things, and teams can really focus on the climbs in terms of strategizing, because they know that they can just shred the peloton if they go fast enough up those things. Dudes will just be done.
I will.
Um,
I do want to note too that unlike the Omloop race, Powless was out front in this race for a really, really long time.
yeah, he was part of the breakaway long before
Yes,
Lisa Bike
100%.
was doing anything.
He was, in fact, what should have tipped us off, in my opinion, is that when Visma finally made their move to go into the 4-man break, because they didn't go into a 4-man break, they went into a break of about 9 riders, and then they kind of came out on the other side of that, dropped everybody but Powless. Powless was
All right,
the
but
only
you're
one.
you're getting way, way, way ahead. Um, let's go back to like 88 Ks to go. You get Mikkel Bjerg and Rasmus Pedersen wiggle off the front of the breakaway group. And then at the back in the peloton, Nilsen Palace and Josh Tarling and Vanden Bosch from Alpecin get off the front of the main peloton. And like, I don't know if you noticed this, but at multiple times throughout this race, you could just hear the wind just like whipping around.
Yes.
I was like, it must not be pleasant to be out there. I mean, it was
You could
bright
hear
and
it on
sunny.
the camera the whole race.
It's crazy. So at this point, Powless, 84 Ks to go. Powless and Tarling are out front, and they're making moves. And they go back to the peloton. You notice that Visma inexplicably is like halfway back of the peloton. They're all sitting in. And it's like, okay, they're getting a little rest. They're saving up because they know what they're about to do. Palace is 40 seconds ahead of the peloton at one point. I don't know if you caught that. One of them noted in the coverage that this race was a 2-day stage race from 1946 to 1964. Just like for 18 years of the race, the race, they were like, yeah, let's just make it a 2-day race. It's bizarre. But then 73 kilometers to go, and you see Visma has their entire team on the front of the peloton. I don't know if you noticed that. Jorgensen, Wout van Aert, Tiesj Benoot, Hagenez, Affini, Dylan Van Barle, and Van der Sande. And they pretty much killer bee it right then and there. 71 Ks to go. They catch the leaders and separate themselves right off the front of the peloton with Van Aert, Benoot, Matteo Jorgensen, and Affini at that point.
Yes.
Took them 1 kilometer to catch the leaders. This is also when you got a great shot. They were coming through a little town, and there was like these giant, like hand painted murals of like famous old cyclists.
Oh, well, there was like 5 of them in a row.
Yeah,
yeah, on the left of the road, right?
Yeah, you gotta love Belgium. You gotta love Belgium. So cool. So I think it was like around 61K to go that it's finally knocked down to the final 4, right?
Correct. Now, there was, like I said, they were in like a bigger group, but Visma's pressing that group so hard that they drop everybody but Powless. Powless is the only one that's able to stay with those 3 guys because they're ramping, because they're just taking turns, just crushing it. And Benoot, in my opinion, the biggest loser of the day, because he did so much work. He did such a beautiful job keeping these guys set up and keeping the pace really, really high all day long. To not come out with it is just so disappointing, in my opinion. I feel the worst for him out of everybody.
Yeah, and this is a guy who's been in the top 10 for like 7 or 8 times in a row. But funny enough, it was the Iron Maiden climb, 56 kilometers to go when they dropped everybody except for Palace. Basically, it was one of those tactical situations where they were waiting for that climb because they knew that would be the time when they really applied the pressure and everybody would drop. Unfortunately for them, Nilsen Palace did not drop.
Well, and this is also starts, 20, about 20 or 30K where Paulus does the smartest thing that he could do for this entire race, which was he started working with those guys and taking his turns on the front. He didn't just sit on the back. And I'm going to say it right now. That's one of the reasons why he won this race. All right.
He Alaphilipped it. He didn't do an equal number of turns, but he did turns. He kept,
He did enough.
He let them know, I'm working here, guys. I'm with you too. Like I'm good.
He did enough to not have them attack him, which was, in my opinion, the fatal flaw. Was they should have fucking buried him in that 30K. All right. They between 50.
Right. This is the exact same thing to go. They did not learn. Number one, they did not learn from 2015's Quick Step. But you know who else they didn't learn from? They did not learn from the 2022 Killer Bee squad on stage 11 of the Tour de France on the Col de Grenon when they absolutely dismantled Tadej Pogacar by rolling attacks on him one after the next. They wrote the book on this shit 3 years ago and they blew it. They had three guys. They had the former winner. They had Wout freaking Van Aert. They had Tish Benut, a top 10. Why were they not destroying this dude? Instead, they just sat there and tried to ride really fast the same exact way that Edix Quick Step did.
Well, and I think that out of the however many riders you had that day, those were the four strongest riders that day. All right.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason that the three of them couldn't have just buried Paulus if they wanted to. All right. They were all riding really, really well. And if they had done the smart thing and just attacked him to death, they would have dropped him. They could have dropped him on one of these climbs. And what they did was they let him hang around entirely too long, and then he got smart again. And this is why I just don't want to discount how well Paulus rode this race, is that Paulus made all the right moves at all of the right moments. All right, when he needed to sit on and he needed to say, you know what, you guys need to do the work. Like there's three of you. He did that.
Well, and he also didn't attack. I mean, he didn't have to cover any attacks. I do not recall him having to cover a single attack.
Because there wasn't any.
He took a couple of turns in the front as they were running in for these last 10, 15 kilometers, took a couple turns, let him know, I'm here with you guys, blah, blah, blah. Sat back, waited. I'm sure he would have covered an attack if one came, but he was able. I mean, most of, when I think of those middle kilometers, the image that's in my mind is yellow, 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 pink.
Yes, 100%. Did you notice that they referenced the Omloop race? Did you?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So yeah, at 14K, the commentators made a point to talk about the 2015 Omloop race and how eerily similar this situation was to that race situation, and even said that Standard ended up beating the three Quick Step riders. The parallels were uncanny.
Well, I wanted to note also, like during this period when he was out front, did you happen to notice that his team of EF Education was doing a phenomenal job controlling the front of the peloton? There was two dudes from EF on the front of the peloton the entire time as they were running in. It was very impressive. But speaking of how Visma played it and how they interacted with Nilsson, did you notice them talking to each other? Like at one point Nilsson was like, bro, go. Like, no, I'm not. Why are you yelling at me to go to the front? You have three riders. I'm not going to the front. Go. Let's go. Come on. Let's go fight this out. Go do your thing. It's your move. And
as well he should have. And that's what I say. That's why I say that I feel like at every turn, Nielsen Palace played this perfectly. He didn't leave it up for chance. When he needed to take a turn, he took a turn. When he needed to sit back, he sat back and was able to conserve his energy. And honestly, that's what ends up saving him in the end.
I think on the underdogs side of it, we've already determined on the the team with 3 riders, just going real as fast as you can is not going to work. You have to roll attacks. But as a single rider up against this situation, what you need to be thinking the entire time is simply don't get dropped. Don't get dropped. Like no matter what, don't do anything, but don't get dropped. And with Nilsson, it sort of played out a little bit different than it did for Ian Stannard because, as we said in the last segment, Stannard kind of knew he knew that Terpstra was his guy from within about the last 2 kilometers to go. Palace did not have that advantage.
No, he did not. And Wout was there the entire time. And so, I mean, if your parallel is, Tom Bonin and Wout, all right, it's a very different because Stannard has 4 seconds on Bonin with 1.5 Ks to go. Okay. Wout is there. Like they are all together going in
right.
and going into the last kilometer, Matteo buries himself. It's another thing that I didn't really understand why tactically what they were doing. I didn't understand why it was that Jorgensen buried himself first as opposed to Tige. I don't know if that's just a lead out difference or if maybe he just wasn't feeling it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, clearly they had determined that it was going to be Wout sprinting.
100%.
So the order of the lead out, I don't know necessarily mattered. Maybe that was simply a question of like who's feeling better. They figured it out on the road.
Probably. That's my guess anyway.
I think that the approach for the teams in this situation that have 3 riders, as I just said, roll attacks, but a decision should be made early on, 40 Ks to go or however long, but before this happens or at the minute that you find yourself in this situation, a decision needs to be made. Who is our guy? Who is our guy for the win? Because he's not going to do any work. And our other 2 guys are going to start rolling attacks from way further out, so in the case of Visma, from much further out, it should have been Benoot attacks. Nielsen covers. As soon as Benoot is pulled back, off goes Matteo, and they need to do that 3 or 4 or 5 times. They need to be willing to risk those guys. They need to blow them out because hopefully that pursuer will not be able to hold every one of those. And if he does, he will be so worn out that their designated leader will beat him.
Now,
and they didn't do that. And when it came down to the sprint, their designated leader, he was not on his peak. I mean, in peak form, Wout van Aert beats Nilsson Palace in a sprint. In peak form, he clearly was not on his peak form.
Well, in my opinion, clearly, Palace was the strongest of these 4 riders that day. Clearly, because again, you cannot discount the fact that Palace spent more time at the front of this race than the other 3.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
That's true.
So
taking that into account, you're definitely right.
So not only did he spend more time at the front, all right, when it came down to it, I just think he had more in the tank than the other guys. And again, that's probably a perfect storm situation. I think 9 times out of 10, Wout van Aert's going to have more in the tank than Nielsen Palace. I think we would all agree, that is the case. But in this situation, on this day, Palace had it, period. They should have known it. There's no reason, and this is why it's almost, the way that Visma played it is almost worse than the way that Quickstep played it. Because they just flat out underestimated the competition. All right. Period. Full stop. They, listening to Palace thought he was racing for second. His words. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, and his behavior after the finish line. I mean, you can see it. I mean, he was absolutely stunned.
Yes.
He was totally stunned. He comes in. He was like, "Oh my God, what?" He's like,
so, setting up the last kilometer of the race. They come around that final turn. They're all 4 still together. Jorgensen buries himself on the lead out. He peels off, and it's down to Wout. And essentially, Wout and Palace are getting led out by Benoot, and Palace comes around just
immediately.
just like a second ahead of Wout, and starts to put that sprint in. And it's almost like Wout has to like hurry up and catch up to answer, and has to expend just too much energy in that last little bit. He either didn't have it, or he had to expend too much energy to meet the sprint that Palace had in him. And look, we know that Palace can do this. Palace is a good rider. Like, this is not outside of the ordinary. It's just
He got third. He got third 2 years before.
Right.
He can definitely do it.
And, so he is able to, put the sprint in. Wout gives up like a good, probably 50 meters, 25 meters before the finish line. He like almost sits up and is like,
Well, I think he was just gassed.
Yeah,
I mean, he hit the wall and realized it and did not have anything left in his legs.
I think personally, I think if they had played it differently, I think Benoot might have been able to beat Palace. If you give him the same lead out, I think Benoot had the strength to be able to beat him, because I thought Benoot was riding better than both of the other two guys.
Maybe so.
I just think, but again, he ends up getting what, third? He got third, right? And it was Jorgensen fourth.
Yeah.
He did, again, like Palace, he did more work than the other two and was right there in the end. So if he's not, like I said, I really feel like, Visma really boneheadedly lost this race when there's no reason. Because again, the difference between this one and Omloop is going into the final turn, all three of those guys are there. There's three there, as opposed to the other way around where, it was literally a 1v1 going into the last K, because they had already dropped, Tom Bonin.
Yeah. Is there a possibility that, given how much we discuss like the team cohesion amongst Visma Lease Bike, was there a situation where perhaps there was a little infighting as to, because I mean, Matteo is the defending champion. He could certainly make a case, but they sort of seemed clearly to be out for Wout van Aert. Was that an issue? Could that have been an issue?
I don't know. So I do. So I have two thoughts on this. So given the fact that Wout had wrecked out and they were clearly, riding for Wout last year when Matteo won, it seemed like they were on a redemption tour trying to hook him back up. So
Yeah.
I do believe that they were riding for him.
To go from crashing out to winning would have been,
Yes. And I think that they were
something
right.
very special.
And again, they had already won this thing. I think that they had the three riders up front. I thought clearly we're going to win this race. Like, that's what I'm saying. I think that they, while Palace played it perfectly for what he needed to do, they did just about everything wrong that they could have done. They didn't attack. They slept on Palace, and when it came down to it, he exploited the one chink in the armor that they had, which was that they were not taking him into account. They were not accounting for him. They were not making the corrective effort to be able to win the race when it counted. And that's why I say, I don't want to discount. I don't want to say that they lost the race so that he could win or be like, it was really Visma just losing the race. No. I disagree with that. After rewatching it a number of times, Palace won that race. All right. And they underestimated him. All right. They slept on him. It was not the other way around. It wasn't Palace capitalizing on their mistakes. Their mistake was not taking care of Palace earlier.
Well, he did a good enough job in this race to earn a new nickname from me. He will henceforth be known as the Bee Killer. I don't have anything else to say about this except for one thing.
Let me ask you this. If you're Jorgensen in this situation and Wout blows up the way that it is, are you pissed at the end of the race?
Uh, I don't know. I mean, I'm just pissed that we lost. I'm pissed that we had a 3-on-1 and we lost. That kind of leads to my last comment, which is the very sad for Visma slow-mo head-on shot at the finish line. First, Wout shakes his head when he realizes he doesn't have it. Then you see Tish drop his head and the hand goes up like this. And Mateo's out there in the back with just a sad look on his face. And all of a sudden it's just like all three of them are just like, what did we do? What just
Well, I told you,
happened? It's so pathetic.
I
It's
said
sad.
earlier that I really feel like the biggest loser in this situation wasn't Wout van Aert. It was Tish Benoot, man.
Yeah.
Tish rode a great race, man, and I'm not going to take anything away from him. That dude was crushing the front of that race for a really long time. He was doing more work than the other two, and completely burying himself, and he was still hanging in there at the end. And so, like, I feel if anybody that they let down, they let Tish down, because Tish did such a damn good job. He really, really did. And, biggest win of Palace's career. Another great interview after the race, and he even said it himself. He's like, I assumed I was riding for second. And all of a sudden he finds himself in the situation of, wait a minute, I'm gonna put everything into this sprint. Wait a minute, am I about to beat Wout van Aert? What? Like, what
Is this happening?
Yeah. And he just came off, and the sheer joy on his face and his reaction after the race was everything.
That was so good.
There's a really good, like, you can hear somebody on his team. It was definitely, maybe it might have been his wife or something, was like, you could just hear this one, like, female, like, like, as he gets into the paddock, like into the paddock area there.
The line that I loved is when his teammate rode up, the first teammate to come across, they came up, he gave him a hug, and he says, I can't believe it. That feels so good. It's like, you're right, buddy. It sure does, man. That was just awesome.
His reaction too was so pure and intoxicating, just the way that he was after the race. Like, you could tell that was real excitement, because I think he had resigned himself 60 kilometers back that he wasn't going to win this race. These guys established 50K dominance on the front of this race, and then somehow managed to let it get out of their hands. And that's why I say, I don't want to take anything away from, I don't want to say that it was, they lost the race. I really do believe that Palace won the race.
Agreed.
So, on that note, we'll be back to take a cobbled ride in the Broom Wagon. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. We're going to take a ride in the Broom Wagon. Matt, what do you got for us this week?
As mentioned earlier, I am very stoked to dedicate my broom wagon today to one Luke Rowe. I thought to myself, he's kind of always bouncing around our feeds. He's the co-host of What's Occurring with Geraint Thomas, one of our favorite cycling podcasts. He's now a assistant sports director at Decathlon AG2R La Mondiale.
This team is going to be huge,
and he's kind of out
too.
there. And I wanted to sort of get to know the man a little bit better. So I looked into his career. It turns out that he has 2 career wins. So this man had a 12-year-long career and only won 2 times. Very happy to report that both of those wins are available on YouTube in some form or fashion. So the first one was at the 2012 Tour of Britain, Stage 1, where he was in the very first year of his contract. He had a 2-year Neo Pro contract with Team Sky back in the classic colors, the black jerseys, the blue stripe down the middle. And he was never supposed to be the guy to win this race, but he won it when, in similar fashion to something we were talking about earlier, um, his team leader, Mark Cavendish, in the rainbow jerseys at the time, the 1 year that he rode for Ineos, I believe. Rowe was supposed to be his final lead out man, crashed 2 kilometers to go, and somehow Rowe found himself with the other lead out guy that was in front of him off the front of the race, and a couple of riders were able to kind of catch up with them. Team Sky had been bossing the front of the race. That's why they were up there in the front to begin with. The crash happened like right at the Cavendish point and took him out. Um, and Luke Rowe ends up just like winning a sprint and like two up sprint against another dude. And suddenly
Do you
he's
remember who
not
he
only,
beat?
I can't remember. Do you?
Mm,
No, I can't remember. But um, he, it's stage one. So he gets himself a leader's jersey. And it's also the first year of his career. The team must have been thinking, "Oh yeah, we got ourselves a good one right here. This is good." So, and it was the Tour of Britain, his home tour, so that just must have been so sweet. The second win of his career came 5 years later, stage two of the 2017 Jayco Herald Sun Tour in Australia. Um, this was during the Chris Froome era, and Froome was riding in this race. Totally different kind of win that he got here, which I love that he got a sprint win, and then in this situation he got a solo breakaway win. He was part of the breakaway of the day, huge advantage. And when the road started to go uphill towards the end, he found himself in a really select group. It got whittled down to two with him and this American guy named Tanner Putt, and Luke totally outfoxed him. Every time Putt looked at him, he looked like he was dogging and flailing and just trying to keep up. And then all of a sudden, he just dropped him like in an instant. He's just like, nope, just kidding, mate, gone. And he was never caught again. Um, there was a long highlights reel of this thing, like almost an hour long, which is like you may as well just call it like a race broadcast. But there was a couple of funny things on there. Number one, so the commentator for this race was a guy named Matt Keenan and Phil Liggett. Um, but there was a sign on the side of the road that said "We love Matt and Robbie." So they must have thought in Australia that Robbie was commentating. Or well, actually, as I think about it now,
he could have
in
been
Australia
commentating.
they were probably watching the Australian version that had Robbie and some other Matt.
Yeah.
But anyways, there was a
It's
shot.
probably
If you
Matt
look at my
Stevens.
notes, it might have been Matt Stevens.
Yeah.
If you look at my show notes, there was a shot that they showed of a very extreme close up of a spider with the Peloton coming behind them, behind the shot. And at that moment, Phil asked Matt, "Name that spider." He's like, "I have no idea." So Phil let him in on it. He goes, "That's an orb spider." And then they immediately went back into commentary. And I'm just like, leave it to Phil Liggett to just like nail the entomology identification on the roadside.
That's funny.
So just to finish up about Luke Rowe, man had a 12-year professional career. He shepherded Chris Froome to three consecutive Tour de France wins, 15, 16, and 17. And then the following year, his countryman and great friend Geraint Thomas to his one and only Tour de France win in 2018. He was also part of the squad supporting Ian Stannard on that day in 2015 when he
Yes, he
won
was.
Omloop. And as I said, he's now assistant sports director at Decathlon, beloved co-host of What's Occurring with Geraint Thomas. Luke Rowe, the team bus salutes you, sir. We wish you all the success in the coming years.
Oh, dude, they got a squad.
Yes, sir. All right, what do you got?
I just wanted to bring up the FIFA World Cup selection. Did you catch any of this?
I've been hearing bits and pieces, but do
it was like
expound.
maybe the most disgusting thing that I feel like I've ever seen a professional sports organization do. So they do the selection, and what they're doing is they're selecting the team, like how the teams are going to slot into the different groups. So Canada gets up there; they have the first pick, and obviously the World Cup is in North America. All right, so Canada, Mexico, and the United States are hosting.
Mm.
Canada gets up. What's their selection? Canada. Mexico gets up. What's their selection? Mexico. Trump gets up. And what's his selection? USA. Like, come on. And they give Trump some,
wouldn't any country in the world do that?
Huh?
Wouldn't any country in the world do that?
No. It's a random selection. They're like picking balls.
Oh, you're kidding me.
No, not at all. It's random.
Were the commentators acting like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing we've ever seen in our lives?
Well, you get the guy on stage, and you get because the different presidents are talking. So
you got to put a link in there. Put a link in there so I can watch it, and I'll put it in the show notes.
The other part was they gave Trump a peace prize. All right, they gave him a peace prize and a medal.
Don't get me started on this.
I swear to God,
the Nobel Peace Prize is the most farcical thing in the world. And when you're talking about the FIFA,
Peace Prize.
Yeah, it's just an absolute. I mean, all of this is just a joke, and it's absolutely no surprise in this stupid ass world we live in. You know, sportocracies are just loathsome. FIFA is loathsome.
It's
the whole thing.
Disgusting.
And as far as like the Nobel Peace Prize goes, they gave it to Barack Obama, the guy who came into office with 2 wars and left with 7. Don't tell me about that. That man's dropped more bombs on brown people than any president we've ever had.
Yes.
So, don't get me started on peace prizes. That's the most bullshit convention ever.
So, but shame on FIFA. The whole thing was farcical. Plenty of commentators, out there like, this is completely rigged and ridiculous. By the way, those 3 selections also gave all 3 of those nations easy paths into to go deep into the World Cup.
Like they get a pass from the group stage.
Yeah. They all have easy groups.
Oh, they're all in easy groups.
Yep.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So,
no surprise.
Boo to FIFA. All right. That's all for this week. Join us next week for a reaction to the 2025 Velo d'Or ceremony, as well as a roundup of news from around the pro cycling world. Until then, from my brother Matt, I'm Justin Harper. Thanks for listening. We hope you'll join us again soon for another ride on the team bus. Allez.
The Team Bus is a production of Harperama. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Please like and subscribe, smash that button, leave a 5-star review, and most importantly, tell all your friends about us. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time. Allez!